Welcome back. Here is part 2 of kind of the impromptu episode that is focusing on my wrist injury. Again, if you have not watched the intro to injury episodes, part 1 and 2 that talk about what certain tissue injury types look like in terms of healing times and so forth, make sure you go back and watch those. I will not be really going into that too much here. So if you'd like more information on that, make sure you go back and watch those first. Otherwise, we're going to move on to the second portion of my wrist injury. So in the first part of this episode, we focused really on the ulnar collateral ligament injury. And fortunately for you all watching, in terms of duration or length of video, this video is going to be a little bit shorter because a lot of those same things that we could do for the ulnar collateral ligament are also things that we can do for the other portion of my injury that I'm going to talk about today, which is the triangular fibrocartilage complex tear. The TFCC, which I'm going to flash a picture up on your screen, should take a look at that. The TFCC is this cartilaginous, fibrocartilaginous complex is honestly the best way to describe it. Junction between your radius ulna and some carpals, which are your hand bones. Its function is stability, really, and then to protect that articulation or that part where the two or multiple bones meet and move on one another. It's not meant to give too much movement, so when that tears, then you kind of get a problem in that area because you get a little too much movement. I'm not going to get any deeper than that. I have torn that. It's not a severe tear, but it's enough that it has caused me some pretty moderate to severe pain and then some popping and clicking in my wrist whenever I turn my hand up or down, just kind of turning my wrist like that. I don't have any of that right now. Things are going really well. But that's what we're going to focus on today. So much like the UCL injury, we're going to do some of the similar things. So let's look at what we would do first for that. Now, if you've noticed, I'm still wearing a brace on this wrist. The bracing is more for the ligamentous injury, for cartilage injuries. You don't really need to brace. However, this kind of fibrocartilage complex is a little bit different than like a meniscal tear or some other kind of cartilage injury in that it does function for a lot of stability. So I'm going to continue to wear this brace during this time. And also, much like that UCL injury, one of the first things we're going to work on is range of motion. And much like last time, you could do some passive range of motion. That's not necessary to start off that way. If you have a pretty severe injury or one that is super painful and passive is the only way that you can avoid some of that pain, you can start there, sure. But I'm not really in that boat anymore. So I'm going to start with active range of motion. And so let's look at some of what some of those movements would look like. Okay, and now, much like that ulnar collateral ligament video or portion of the episode last time, we're going to be doing some strengthening and loading of the joint. Not necessarily loading of any kind of ligaments. I mean, that's going to happen indirectly. We're going to be loading more, tendons and muscles and things like that. But that's also the best way to help heal this cartilaginous complex. So a lot like ligaments, cartilage is avascular, has very low blood flow. And the unfortunate thing about that is that that means it takes a lot longer to heal. If you watched Intro to Injury, you would know those healing times, and we talked about really high rep and set ranges, and that's exactly what we've got to do. We got to get a bunch of sets in, a bunch of reps in. So whereas with muscle, you know, that it's got a high blood volume and that can heal really quickly, and that's how we strengthen quickly, right? But really for cartilaginous injuries, you have to pump up the volume in terms of what you're doing. So let's go ahead and take a look at what some of those exercises might be like. So following the active range of motion portion of your rehab, you're going to be looking to do some stretching of the muscles that surround the wrist. Now this becomes a little tricky because there is also ligamentous injury. Generally speaking, when you have a ligamentous injury, you're not looking to stretch that ligament because it's compromised, it's torn. To whatever degree, you're not really looking to stretch that. You want to stress it? Absolutely. And will you be stretching it a little bit? Sure. But you're not taking it necessarily to its end range with overpressure or extra stress or load. So this kind of, like I said, becomes a little tricky. Fortunately for me, the motions that UCL resists or stabilizes are not ones that we're necessarily looking to do in order to stretch at the wrist. We're going to be avoiding those motions, actually. We're not even going to touch them. So let's go ahead and look at the stretching routine that we would do to stretch the muscles surrounding the wrist for that fibrocartilage injury. All right, so once we have started to load that cartilage through activation of muscles around the wrist, once we've kind of gotten those things going along with the stretching, the range of motion, we're feeling pretty good about things, we can start looking to functional activities. Last week's episode, we covered that pretty well. The cartilage injury, it varies by person, and so you really have to kind of play it by ear. Again, it's going to take a long time to heal. You're going to have to move and continue to move in order to help that to heal. So taking extra time off, much like a tendinous injury, is not the greatest idea. You do need to decrease the degree in which you are loading it, the degree in which you are using it, yes. But taking it completely off, unless you have a really significant tear, is not the way to go about it. So, like I really hated to hear in PT school when I asked a question about, anything, I hated to hear the answer, well, it depends. Professors would say that all the time, well, it depends. And it was really frustrating because I wanted a really, straightforward, cut and dry answer. But as I've slowly learned that there are none. So, With my cartilaginous injury, I'm gonna really take it really slow. Like I said, I'm gonna be conservative in the last episode. That's still what I'm gonna aim to do, just be really conservative and aim to just take care of it. So again, I'm gonna start out at a certain point here, throwing some circle 1 putts. As that feels better after a certain amount of time, if I'm not getting any increased pain or increased clicking or popping, I'm gonna move to circle 2. And then to up shots, and so on and so forth. And then eventually the ultimate functional activity or functional movement in terms of healing is playing a full round. And like I said, I'm gonna have to be really honest with myself the first time I go out. If I'm not feeling it, or if it's not feeling quite right, I should not play a full 18 or full 36 or whatever the day would hold. I'm gonna have to cut it back. And if it starts to hurt and starts to get up there, I'm gonna really need to stop. So let's take a look at some of those functional activities. There you go. You made it through another installment of PhysioDisc. Well, at least a portion of an episode anyway. This installment, again, was the second portion of my wrist injury where we really focused on that TFCC. So I hope this was educational for you. I hope this was helpful in some way. I really hope that no one has to deal with this because it's really a pain. I haven't been able to play disc golf in a really long time, and that drives me crazy. So I hope, again, that this is just this is out there for folks to help them get through injury, this specific injury, and I hope that it serves as an encouragement to you. If you like what you hear, if you like what you're seeing, if you would like to see more, please subscribe to this channel. Please tell your friends about it. Tell your colleagues about it. Tell your grandma about it. I don't care. Spread the word. PhysioDisc is here to help disc golfers get back out on the course if they are injured, or to potentially prevent future injury. So continue to check out the channel as well as we add more content. We're hoping to get more out just as we progress here. So look forward to catching you next time. Thanks.
Yep. Wow.
Hey, look at the camera.